Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rocket Lasso Live. This is episode 5, and it's a very special episode because it is the first guest of this season. And we just ran through all the tech stuff. Hopefully, everything works. There's always a chance that XSplit gets upset. There's a lot more buttons and dials and knobs to turn when it comes to there being a guest, but hopefully everything is working. And okay, thank you, Polytech. Sound check good, video check good. We'll see how well this goes. In any case, I would like to introduce today's guest, and that is, find the right button, me and guest, and go. We have Jonathan Winbush. Welcome, man. Thank you for being a guest today.
What up, what up? Winbush here. I'm excited to be here on Rocket Lasso. It's long overdue, but definitely appreciate you having me on the show today.
Totally. I'm excited. You are the first guest of the season. I was excited to get you lined up and the first one on the docket. In any case, I would like to completely pass this over to Jonathan so he can give you a little bit of his background and let me know when you want to share the screen and I'll flip it over to that as well. But for now, it's just going to be you talking. Go for it.
Yeah. So you have my screen up now?
I can if you want.
Yeah.
Guest screen.
Cool. So
right.
I'll start with my website here so you can see it on the screen, right? So my company name is Winbush Immersive. I've been doing motion graphics professionally since 2006. I got my start actually interning under Adam Sandler over at Happy Madison, where I worked on movies, designing DVD, Blu-ray menus, movie trailers, like the whole gamut. And then from there, I went on to work with like Universal, Warner Brothers, until eventually I went on my own, which you see right here, which is Winbush Immersive. So I still work in broadcast and television and immersive tech such as virtual reality and then also real-time stuff as of late. So if you ever want to check out my work, I need to update my site here, but if you go to winbushimmersive.com, you can see a lot of the stuff that I've worked on here. Like I've worked on shows for Netflix. I've done, actually, this is NAB Live from last year. I did the bumper trailer. If you watched the NAB showcase last year, all the graphics there, that was mine there. I appreciate it. Actually, the funny story is that was my first commercial project that I did using Cinema 4D and Unreal Engine. So up to that point, it was just like a lot of experimenting, but then Matthias reached out and asked me to present. And then I was like, okay, this is my chance to just get in there, tackle it, put my money where my mouth is and come up with something dope. So that was where that all came about right there. And then, yeah, I've done some stuff with the Special Olympics a few years ago out in Abu Dhabi. This is a virtual reality project. Worked on with Sia, music video for My Little Pony. So I have like a wide gamut and array of different type of work. I always just like to kind of keep things fresh and not just stick to one medium. I like to just, mix it up because my whole thing, such as yourself, is I like problem solving. And so, with the different challenges that come about, it's always just fun to get in there and just try to figure the different things out. And so that's pretty much my body of work there. Just check back maybe in like a few weeks because I'm going to be constantly updating this with some new work. But yeah, that's basically my background there. And then if you guys, this is where people are starting to really recognize me as for the last couple of years is up on YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com/Jonathan Winbush, I do tutorials such as Chris. My main focus is Cinema 4D, a little After Effects, and Unreal Engine. And so I do a lot of workflow between Cinema 4D and Unreal Engine. As I'm figuring stuff out, I make a tutorial and I post it up so everybody can kind of see, like how I go about tackling these problems. And then I do have a step-by-step course through mograph.com. And so did you want me to stop here or do you want me to keep going through it? Okay.
Well, you've already had a course. Do you have an upcoming course?
So this right here on mograph.com, if you come down to creating the Unreal, this is my course that I put out a few months ago. And so I'm actually updating it as stuff starts updating in Unreal Engine. So when I started this course, we were on version 4.25, and I believe it was Cinema S22. And so since then, 23 has come out on the Cinema 4D side, and 4.26 has come out on the Unreal side. And so as stuff is starting to progress, the integration between the two is becoming a lot better. When it first started out, there was practically just really basic integration there. And so they just been listening to the community, making it better on both ends. And so basically as this stuff is progressing, I'm adding bonus chapters at the end, and then I'm also updating stuff within the chapters. Like little stuff kind of updates, like they added Apple ProRes in this last update and DNX HD codecs and things of that nature and crypto mats. And so I add that stuff to the course so you're never left behind. And then hopefully when Unreal Engine 5 comes out, I plan on making a new course. I did apply for the Epic Mega Grant, so if they want to, fund it on that end, that would be something I will release 100% free through YouTube. If not, then yeah, we'll take it as it comes. But yeah, that's something I'm really excited about this year is Unreal Engine 5 once that finally drops in our lap.
Excellent. That is looking awesome, man. Yeah, definitely. I put his links in the chat, on both the chats, and definitely if you're watching this on YouTube later on, then all the links will be below directly to all of these different things. So let's see. There's already some questions coming in. I'm going to put us both on screen, and let's see. There's some. Just seems like talking questions. First of all, somebody's asking if you were dabbling with any capture reality along with Unreal. I'm not even sure what that is. What's capture reality?
Oh, so yesterday, Capture Reality is the photogrammetry application, and basically, you take like a ton of photos, and then you can make a photoreal 3D object out of that photo. Actually, you did some stuff with that, right? With the GNOME tutorial, I believe.
That was the very first Rocket Lasso tutorial.
Yeah, so that company, Capture Reality, Epic Games actually just bought them yesterday. So now they're under the Unreal Engine umbrella, and so it's I'm going to start exploring it. It's not free as of yet. Like they lowered the price tremendously. So, the cost of entry is a lot easier to get into, but it's something I haven't played around with yet, but definitely looking forward to getting into, especially now that it's under the Epic umbrella. Hopefully they make that integration there a lot easier.
Yeah, I think I actually did start looking at that yesterday. I just don't have the name in my head yet. But there's actually, I think, a really good video from School of Motion that is doing the integration. And as far as I know, I guess there's credits, but it almost seemed like you can import and do all the stuff with the model. And then when it goes to export time, they will charge you a certain amount of money depending on like the detail and the mesh size and the polygons. But the prices are changing because they have new ownership. And yeah, it's really cool. And it seems like a lot more of a one-stop solution for you take a bunch of photos, put it in the software, and that takes care of it. Where the tutorial I created almost 2 years ago now with Aaron Coverett is like, there's like 5 distinct stages, and it seems like this software does most of those all in one, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Have you been testing the new MetaHuman? I'm assuming that's something with Unreal because I don't recognize it.
Yeah, so MetaHuman is so you're familiar with like Daz 3D or Poser or Character Creator, yeah?
Sure.
So MetaHuman is basically, from what we know so far, like those programs on steroids. Like it makes photoreal humans, and it has, like, from what I'm told, like it even goes down to the dental work. Like you could basically take the teeth and you could grunge them up, or make them look as photoreal as possible. But this is something that Epic just released. Well, they released the beta of it last month, I believe. So they gave out a sample. It's not fully functional where we could start making our own humans yet. But yeah, that is, I played with the demo settings and I did a first look tutorial on my YouTube channel, so you guys could check that out. I haven't done any motion capture stuff with it yet, just because I kind of wanted to wait until we had the fully functional version in our hands before I started really diving into that. And so, yeah, that's something to check out, but it's definitely some cool looking stuff that they have going on in there. Like they bought 2 motion capture companies that actually work on like Hollywood films, I believe, like The Lion King and things like that. So all that technology we now have at our disposal.
Awesome, man. Oh, that's crazy. There's so many cool things that are coming along that world. I mean, I'm fully in the pre-rendered world unless I'm starting to tinker with specific video game things. And then when I did, pretty much there was a bunch of hype for Unreal and Cinema, especially after you did your presentation, even to the extent that I went and I downloaded Unreal and I started playing a little bit and I got a model from Cinema into it. But then I immediately started like getting distracted by the programming in it. And then because I've always got like different game ideas, so I never ended up getting into the rendering at all. And then it's like, I got to get back to regular Cinema because this is a black hole and I'm going to get completely sucked into it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Somebody's asking if you know if there's any kind of Unreal compatibility with Redshift coming. I don't even know is that a sensible question? Because Unreal doesn't.
So as of right now, Unreal only takes Cinema 4D native materials. It's something I've asked about, over at the team there, and they did receive a mega grant, so they are actively working on ways they can integrate the two programs better together. And so, like, I don't have any inside information on the Redshift front, but I know it's something that I've expressed several times because it's something that people always ask me, and I kind of think it makes sense. And so hopefully, they take that into consideration, especially since Redshift is under the Maxon umbrella. It only makes sense because I mean, I don't know if you know anything, but I think like Redshift might be the default render maybe in a couple of years because it only makes sense. Like I don't see
Yeah.
really that much more need for the regular render as now.
I mean, I am just speaking as a user of Cinema 4D, as an artist using it. I 100% agree. It's, and I think everybody's assumption immediately was like, oh, they bought Redshift. That's going to become the default renderer. They have made, as far as I know, and I can't speak to anything behind the scenes, but as far as I know, they've made no motions to that. They're like, no, we're a company that also happens to own this renderer. We're going to make sure it's really
Yeah.
well integrated. But from any kind of official standpoint, I have not seen anything with them being like, oh, that's going to become like built in and become our native renderer right now. In spite of the fact that physical can still get the job done, and standard is still great if you're doing things like sketch and tune. I mean, it's actually
Right.
surprising the number of like, if you're doing motion graphicsy kind of abstract things, standard renderer is still pretty great for that, and it's pretty speedy along those lines. But as soon as you start going any level of photorealistic, any kind of high level shadow, any kind of like detail, blurry reflections, blurry transparency, obviously that's absurdly slow. So
Right.
at this point, it's hard to not have a third party renderer. But I would love it. But right now, I think they're like, well, no, we're a company that happens to own that, but that doesn't mean these products become one. But who knows? So many
Yeah.
things are shifting in the industry. I mean, even things like it was a couple of years ago, but when all of the video game development platforms decided to go free for everybody until you started making a profit from it, and some of the 3D softwares have been going that direction as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a big shift there. Logan saying that I would love blueprinting. I agree. I did immediately. I was doing blueprinting, and I started going really in depth, and I started to make this like grid generator, but then that's for quick blueprinting. It's not the way you should actually design code inside of Unreal. So it's kind of a trap in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you can actually do like proper, coding inside of Unreal, but a lot of people are just more comfortable with that nodal-based system. That's why Blueprint has become like pretty much their go-to because like I've done Unity for a couple of years there, and that's all C++, I believe. And
Yep.
yeah, like the first thing I did was went to the Unity marketplace and bought like a nodal type system there just so I could start programming using nodes and things.
Yeah, I actually taught myself C++ from Unity. So it's actually
Oh,
really good.
really?
It's a really good motivator to learning code
Nice.
because you get such instant feedback, and there's so many like introductory tutorials. But in Unreal, there's definitely the proper coding, and it's just it's always going to be quicker to write the code, but it's less intuitive because you don't have that visual component. But in any case, yeah, C++, and they also have Java stuff. I'm not sure. But in any case, we should probably start trying to get to some questions here. So here's one a couple people have seconded. So I'm going to pop open this question from Tyrone in the chat. And let's see what we're taking a look at here. Ooh, that one's crazy. So this is from Jordy Page Spawns. Jordy Page Spawns? And what are we looking at here? This is cool. We could maybe make something weird and abstract. I mean, we could make something weird and abstract in Cinema, and then you could get this into Unreal, right? If we
Yeah,
want to make
yeah.
something akin to this. So
Yeah,
let's
just a little experimenting because sometimes everything doesn't come over one to one, but that's part of the fun of it. So it's like sometimes you export out as a FBX or a Limbic, just kind of experiment to find what works. But we could definitely tackle something like that.
Yeah, well, let's use this as an inspiration for where we'd want to go. The idea that seems to be here is we've kind of got these little blobby clouds, but then they're getting sliced up in a spherical pattern. It's not just like a line, circle going through, because we'd see the sphere get merged here. So would you like to, as a workflow process, that I can start building something here, and you art direct me to any degree that you want to. I will not be offended in any way. And then once I've made a model, maybe you can, well, I could save it over to you, and then you could do the entire export process, and then just make it start doing whatever you want in Unreal with it. And we'll see if we can
Yeah.
do cool things. Maybe people in the chat could even shout out additional ideas as we go. but that's
Sounds
where
good
I'm
to
at
me.
right now.
Perfect.
Should we be cognizant of any poly counts in any way? Is that going to be a major worry? Like, what are we going to be exporting as?
So the only thing I would say is for materials, you just want to use basic Cinema 4D materials. Other than that, we should be pretty fine. So, oh, the one thing that you do want to do is like hit Control D on your keyboard to be able to bring up your project settings. Then go over to Cineware, your Cineware tab there, right next to your project settings up top. Yep. And so you want to save Polygon Cache and then save animation. You want to save out all of these because with the new workflow integration between Cinema and Unreal, we no longer have to save the project out for Cineware. Like it could take a native Cinema 4D file. So you just have to make sure you get to that Cineware tab, check mark everything in there. And then, if we're going to be using like a texture, like an image texture, then you just want to make sure you set your resolution there under width and height and then your format. But yeah, everything check marked there, you should be good to go.
Not material cache right now.
It depends if we're going to be using the image one. If you're
Yeah,
just going to
let's
be using strictly procedural, then you should be fine.
yeah, let's not for now. And there's a good chance I'll actually send it over to you for you to do the exporting. That way we're transferring a small cinema file and you can get the bigger
Yeah.
export, so we're not syncing like a 500 meg file between our hundreds of miles across the country. Okay, I'm going to, like, while this is a cool inspiration that we have, I don't ever want to just be directly emulating somebody's artwork too directly. So we're going to be going with some blocky looking shapes here. And begin with I've got cloner set to linear. And I like setting up this way because then throwing in a random effector, we can spread these out evenly in any direction we want from this angle and get the nice kind of separated look here. And I'm kind of thinking if we do go with a cloud type look, we can get these blocky looking clouds, which could be kind of neat. Then as a series of clusters, I'm thinking, what if we feed this into a null, put that into another cloner, and actually I might be able to separate those out, but with this grid array, I guess we can look from the top down, seems reasonable. And we'll make I'm not sure how many clusters, let's say 6 by 6. Add some extra spacing here. We're going to want enough coverage. Let's go about 800. Enough coverage so it's filling it up pretty well, but there's not too much spacing in between. That seems about reasonable. Here's a thought. If I pull this random effector out, does it randomize the seed of each of these? No. You see they're all identical. But if we move this random effector inside, I could make a duplicate of that entire little QB cloud rig inside the cloner, tell this to blend between them. And if I change the random seed on this one to some other number, it's going to be blending that random seed. And now every single one of these cloud clusters is its own completely unique rig. We can continue.
That's cool.
Yeah, we can add a bunch of variation. Anything we want to change, we just have to make sure we change on both of them. So if the overall cluster should be larger, I can grab both cloners and scale them up. We can then grab each random effector and increase the distance that these should be randomizing. Let's go 444, 444. So yeah, that's going to spread them out pretty well. We get this nice big blobby cluster. Then this outer cloner, we can make it do whatever we want now. So how about a little bit of random movement? So these could be drifting around perhaps. Some noise. Currently it's set to a big global noise, so the scale counts. Yeah, I guess I'll do it this way. If I were to play, you're going to see them wiggling around. Let's go with scale's not the one I want. I want a nice big scale, but I want a very slow animation speed. So we just see a little bit of movement happening there. And if I set them to be indexed, then each of them is going to individually calculate. I think what that pretty much does is it grabs every single one of the individual clones, grabs its index, and it's calculating it in a completely different random space in this giant cloud of noise. Otherwise, they're all referencing the exact same local position. So those are all doing their wiggle. We can make these be manipulated however we want. So they could definitely be moving around a little bit faster or a little bit farther. Add a little rotation on here. I mean, a lot of this just goes to what the look is going to end up being. But let's do 45, 45, 45. Just get a little bit of motion. We might need to slow it down. But yeah, there's kind of a nice little crystalline structure looking thing. And the next thought is what shape? I mean, the sphere, it was kind of taking a bite out of a sphere. And there's something kind of inherently nice about that shape.
For cutting out the middle piece there?
Yeah, for kind of like revealing the form of something. I'm trying to think of any other shape that would work about as well. I mean, honestly, we're kind of in this cube world, so let's attempt that. Here's my thought. I don't know if this will work. Throw that into a cloner and make a bunch of copies again. So I'll set that to linear. I don't want it to change position, but I would like it to do is start scaling up, and it's currently scaling up per step. So let's say each step scales up about 120%. Copy that to X, Y, and Z. Each one's getting bigger, and now as I increase this, you see I'm getting more and more and more cubes. You can't see them inside, but if we change our display mode over to lines and G being the shortcut, you see I've got a whole series of layers there. And I just thought of a potential problem, but we'll figure that out when we get there. I would like a little more separation, so let's say 155, 155, 155, so those get bigger. And then I would like this to have its own randomness, so get rid of that, and I want these to begin to randomly spin. I don't know if them passing through each other is going to create a lot of trouble for us. It very well might, making this up as I go, but we'll just see how this goes. I'm going to shrink that a little bit extra.
We'll try it out.
Yeah.
The one thing I do want to, because I noticed the viewport is, I don't know if it's through Skype, but it is starting to slow down a little bit, it feels like.
Oh, no, this is
okay,
we're running at 83 frames per second right now.
Okay, cool. Because that's going to say for inside of your cloner, we have to make sure that we just keep it as an instance, because, you know, if you use like multi-instance or anything of that nature, that stuff won't translate over.
Yeah, you see it does speed us up, but it doesn't transfer, unfortunately.
Yeah,
as soon as you want to make it real, there's a lot of ways that the instance, multi-instance, and the render instance are not real in the sense that they're actual geometry in the scene.
Right.
So anyway, where this was going to go, and I'm trying to keep this relatively simple from a hierarchy standpoint, is, and I will save this. So let's put this into episode 5 scene files. And as always, people supporting on Patreon, you get access to the scene files. So I'm just going to call this Cube Cloud World number 1. Now, my thought was, and we will take a significant hit on speed on this, but in order to emulate the reference a little bit, this entire thing needs to get thrown into a volume, and that's going to give us a major hit. But this entire thing goes into a volume builder, which I will then immediately put into, well, let me make sure it can handle that. Voxel size, I think we're pretty large, so let's increase that. Okay, I made it way bigger, so then it immediately popped in. Put that immediately into a volume mesher. And actually, okay, that's not too bad right now. It's a little bit blobby, but if we're going to be trying to keep this running in a live stream, we can't let it be chugging too much. So having done that, the main thing is starting to subtract out these layers from this one. And that's where I'm a little bit worried about how these will start interacting with each other.
Yeah, I've not messed with the mesher at all, so I'd be interested to see like how you tackle this one.
Yeah, well, here, let me kind of explain this step by step. If we were to take a single cube and make it pretty big, and if I throw this also into the volume builder, that entire thing just turns into a big additional blob, and it's going to be just merging with everything. And if we go inside of it, you see it's hollow. So it's just kind of an outer skin on top of everything. Now, inside of the volume builder, we could say, okay, subtract. But of course, now it's subtracted that completely, and we've lost all that interior detail. So my thought typically would be that we take this cube and we have to give it some sort of thickness. So one way we could do that is by putting that into a cloth surface. And don't subdivide, but let's give it a decent thickness of 100. So it should be nice. There should be a lot of thickness to that. But does that actually... Yeah, see, it doesn't... The volume doesn't acknowledge it that way. And this is something I always kind of trip over, which is... let's see... Do we have to do that like with fog?
Yeah, you got me on this one.
Yeah, actually, that seemed to actually maybe work, but no, it doesn't work because, well, if I say cloth, oh yeah, subtract. Yeah, now they interact in these really weird ways. I don't like going to fog. Signed at distance is the one I understand. The point being, we've run into this before, where in order to actually show the thickness, I'd had to like punch a hole in it. It doesn't acknowledge the individual parts, so if I don't want to do it that way, let me think for a second. Can we... I'll again make a cube. I will put this in. Yeah, I'm going to stumble over this for a second, but then hopefully it'll suddenly strike me. So that cube then goes into, maybe we could do a folder, and then tell this cube to have a little bit of thickness by adding some dilate and erode. So by dilating it, we're adding thickness. I'll say 55 because currently our voxel size is 55, which should, in theory, give something that's infinitely thin thickness. If this doesn't work, we're going to go with a much simplified version that I know will work. But then if I tell that to subtract, yeah, see, it just still takes that bite out of it. It's not seeing the hollowness of it, and that's the part I'm missing here. So I just so we can keep it moving, I will go with a significantly simplified version of all of this, and I think this will work. And that will be echoing. Actually, this could still look pretty cool, so I'm not actually upset at that. If we were to take a rectangle and lay it flat on the ground, T for scale and make it bigger, and then extrude the entire thing upward. Let's try that. So extrude auto is on, but I don't want auto. I'll extrude it upward, and you can now see, let's move this rectangle down pretty far. So it's down below our clouds, and I want to extrude it up really far. Okay, now I don't want caps. No start cap, no end cap. So it's these hollow walls. So if this gets applied to sort of that same rig we were just talking about, which is it gets put into a group, and then I give this specific extrude thickness, so by dilating it and eroding, let's give that some thickness. Then now you see that we can actually see an inside and outside because it's an open shape. It can handle that. And then the hope is I can say subtract, and there we go. Now you see that we still see the inside while seeing the outside, which is what we were not getting before. Now where this can hopefully work for us is, and I do want to pull this. I'm going to, yeah, I'll pull out the rectangle. I'll put this into a cloner. In fact, we'll just steal that to cube one. And this should hopefully be creating an entire sequence of those. I don't want them to spin, though, so we'll turn that off. So now you can see we're getting a whole series of these splines getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Shrink the overall one. I would like them to get bigger as they go. So we'll do 222, 222, 222. We don't need nearly that many, so I'll pull this back until we're kind of in the range we currently are. And then we could use the random, or we could add a little bit of space on here so we can twirl those this way. We just have control over those overall. Adding in randomness could change some random scale, some random size. But you know what? I'm completely fine with this basic shape as it is. And I don't know if we need to, but I will throw this entire cloner spline setup into a connect object. Holding down Alt as I create it will automatically make it a parent of it. Drop that into the extrude, and then that should hopefully be extruding up that entire shape, which it is. Of course, a cloner exists up in the air, so that entire thing needs to get pulled down. Temporarily turn off the builder just so I can very quickly and cleanly pull this down. We can now see that overall shape. As we turn it on, again, then those should have thickness, and now we can see we get a sequence of slices coming through the overall shape. Actually, if we were going with a spherical one, we could have just popped a hole in the top, and we could have gotten that volume if we wanted to, which potentially could have been cool, but we could continue on this simplified form. So I don't know. I will hit save, but I don't know how speedy this is going to be.
So is this it's going to make a pretty heavy file, yeah?
The export would be, depending on the poly count. Right now, it's not terribly high. Why is this taking so long to save? Oh, it's probably because of that checkbox you told me to turn on, isn't it? Because it normally this should be taking, it should be like a split second to save because there's only like 6 objects in the scene. But that just took a while because of this. You know what? I'm going to temporarily turn those off. We need to remember to turn them on. But so let me, as an experiment, because that was new, if I hit save, now you see it instantly saved. So
I see. We could keep it off for right now, and then when you pass it over to me, then I can put it onto my end.
Yes, exactly. That's the current plan. So here's the current poly count. We can, of course, dramatically improve the quality of the way this looks by going to the volume builder and starting to drop this back down to smaller numbers. So drop this to 25, and you'll see everything will sharpen up significantly. But of course, now we have made 4 times the poly count, which could be bad. How far do you think we can push this before things get really bad?
Let's say 75.
Going up to decrease the poly count. So this being a little bit smoother like this. Because as we go smaller, we increase resolution.
Okay, so maybe go the other way, then maybe 40.
Yeah, so that's a little bit sharper than we had been.
You think we get away with 30?
Well, it's kind of what you think poly count wise, because your export's going to start getting significant, but you can definitely see it's sharpened up quite a bit. We're getting a lot more detail on the edges. I mean, that works for me. Even going from this step, we can, without increasing the poly count, let's create a smoothing. We'll drop that in there. That will help smooth out some of the edges a bit. I like dropping the stiffness down and just increasing the iterations until we get the proper amount that we want. Export time will be significantly affected by anything we do to smooth this out internally. So if we were to add a smoothing here, the smooth will make it look great. It's going to be super smooth, but the frame, well, let me turn it off and check out what we got. If I hit play, it's not going to be quick, but you see it's going to be like frame. I'm getting about 1 frame per second right now, which isn't amazing. But if we turn smoothing on and I hit it, there's so much more additional calculation that we are now at. Actually, it's not that much higher, so that's fine.
So what if you up the voxel size when you have the SDS smooth on?
Well, it is going to blob everything quite a bit, but that is, it's going to make everything blobbier and blobbier and blobbier as we go. But the smoothing is just going to curve everything a little bit. And it just makes it look a little bit nicer here. Now, the only motion that we technically have going on right now is the slight wiggle we put on those kind of blocky clouds. I would like to get some additional movement. Well, we're never going to get any feedback when we're hitting play in that way. So I will temporarily hide the extrude, and let's just take a look at our clouds and see, is this indeed what we want the motion to be from these? The original animation, they were sort of just drifting through, revealing the shape. We're not trying to emulate that specifically, but those could just be doing their own thing. I'd love to add dynamics into the system, but every time you add dynamics, you're just asking to have to cache and bake everything. So not super looking forward, not wanting to do that. I know this is not an inspired setup, but it's something. And I'd love to start spending some time in Unreal. Can you think of anything just like cinema-wise that we could start making this thing a little bit more visually interesting? One thing would be making these animate at least. So we could keyframe. Sure. We could keyframe these to go from, they'll go up to 4 and start out at -4. That'll be something.
So that original animation that you showed, they were kind of it looked like they were procedurally moving to like the left, right? Unless I'm remembering it wrong.
They totally are. I'm not trying to specifically like emulate everything they were doing, but they definitely were moving. I'll pull that up again for a second. But they're definitely traveling to the left.
They're like drifting through it.
Yeah, and they're passing through the overall animation.
Right.
Hey, we got EJ hanging out in the chat. Welcome, EJ.
Hey, what's up? Is he on Twitch or
he's on YouTube? So, I would like to get these moving a little bit more, though. I mean, we could even just keyframe and let the entire thing spin. We could make them travel around a helix. Actually, okay, this will be really quick to set up, and it won't be dynamics driven, even though I'd love to make something dynamics driven. But that requires crazy bakings. Anyway, I'm making a helix shape, and we'll have it spin around twice as much. So there's now a helix spinning around twice, and that is what we're going to clone onto. So this cloner will clone onto not a grid array, but an object. The object is the helix, and we can now control exactly how many of these. Whoa, easy now. Create exactly whatever count we want, enough to fill it up reasonably. And then setting a rate, we can say that these will automatically begin moving. So those should be spinning around, which is already giving us some motion that can slow down. Let's put some rate variation so those can start separating out from each other. And now what you're going to end up seeing is they're going to be kind of popping into existence in the center and popping out of existence on the outside. I don't want that to happen. So we'll add one effector here, which will be straightforward, a plane effector. That plane effector will do what? It's going to affect not the position, but the scale, the uniform scale in an absolute way, which means it can go straight -1, which will scale everything down to 0. But then inside the fall off, I will feed the helix itself. Is the helix the best way to do it? There's several different ways we could do it. I'm actually kind of inclined, now that I think about it, to just do a spherical field.
So are you trying to have it like shrink off as it gets to the outside?
Yeah, so on the inside and the outside. Yeah, so like as these are appearing, they'll start out tiny and then grow into their space. And then we'll just add another one, really straightforward. Copy the spherical field again. Drag it in. That will be additive. And now the secondary one, I can also move that right to the end point. So that should be fading away to nothing at the end. And we could increase those if we wanted to. I don't see any reason that we have to. They're all moving around. The last thing that we could sort of get for free is just adding on a nice delay effector. So adding on a delay is by default set to blend, but you can already see it smooth everything out quite a bit. We can also say even, and that smooths things out as well. As we crank this up, you're just going to see everything calm down quite a bit. Oh, wait. I didn't know that. This is actually evening out. Look, I didn't know that, but you see how this end one is starting to scoot its way towards the center? That's because it's going to disappear from here and appear there, and it's trying to give it a transition between the two. I didn't know it would do that. Turning on blend, though, seems to... Oh, no. Oh, you still see the little zip. They still travel over. That's interesting. So we can't use this. Well, we can't use this to affect the scaling, but I was more concerned with this not affecting the scaling. We can just go back to this cloner and say... that this effector only affects the random and not the plane that comes after it. Oh, it's still... Oh, but that motion is coming from these traveling around. Huh. I didn't kind of expect that to be a problem, but all right.
Well, how do you think it would look once you have the volume builder on in the volume mesher?
I mean, it should look identical to this, just nice and blobby.
Yeah, because I mean, it might blend once it's all blobby and stuff. Like you might not notice it.
I agree. I agree. We wouldn't notice it so much, so we could just ignore it. But I'll know it's there, and it'll drive me crazy. But it's fine. Let's give it a go. And I mean, the nice blending. I don't know. There's even a level where it's kind of like, whee! It's gonna go zip over and do its thing. But yeah, I don't dislike that. And then just to add a little, this is the plane, but I'll just add a little bit of scaling just so we get some visual difference on them. What am I doing? I'm gonna add another plane, and again, it will not affect position. It will affect scale uniformly, -1. As scaling everything down, create a brand new spherical fall off. This one would be super duper big. And I'll give it a full range of fall off. And now we could have them be tiny in the middle, but I'm thinking the opposite. So in the spherical field, go to remapping, invert, and now you see they'll be small on the edge. And now we just decide how much we want this to be applying. So we can change the strength. Actually, the strength is... pulling them all down. Oh, because we inverted. That's fine. In the plane effector, I could just start pulling this down and they'll all scale back up. I just want them a little bit smaller on the outside, so we'll see a little bit more of a gap. And we might scale them up overall, but that's simple. So give that a quick save. Let's turn that volume back on again. And that's going to bring everything back in. And actually, they get quite erased out, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Let's see how easy we can go on the smooth so that they look... Oh, that looks kind of nice. Kind of like that. We'd have to keep on increasing the voxels to have those exist even more so. But I don't dislike this. So I'll just do a little bit cleanup before I pass it over to you. I mean, that's relatively clean. There's the volume. This is what we erase. And then this is all of our cube clouds. And all the rest of those are fine. I'll just put them in the null. Effectors. And I don't think we're going to get great playback here in the viewport. It's going to be incredibly slow, all things considered, but that is going to get exported, which is part of the point here. But of course, you want to see it in real time. We just turn off the volume builder, and now we can see the motion we're getting. Wait, what happened? Why are these all? That
actually looks pretty neat. It looks like a galaxy almost.
Yeah. Well, yeah, those all start moving around, but that's just happening because this smoothing is now getting applied to the direct geometry, and the direct geometry is just going to shrink these cubes down, which is kind of funny. But even with it off, I mean, I do kind of like this look. Maybe we don't even have to blob it.
I say that does look kind of slick there.
This looks cooler than the volume version.
I agree. It's almost Minecraft-y.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like a Minecraft vortex.
Don't get me started on Minecraft.
Yeah.
I love me some Minecraft. I haven't touched it in months and months, but it is fun. Because we're now using a lighter scene, I'm going to increase the count. And we can let these go chugging around, doing their thing. Whee! I mean, I do kind of like them getting recycled over there. I'll add a few extra frames. But is there anything else you think? But other than that, I'd love to throw it in your direction. Maybe these can be beveled now so we get a little bit of a glint of a highlight.
Yeah, I say whenever you're ready to throw it over, we'll see what happens because... Yeah, that's part of the fun of it is just experimenting and see what comes over and what doesn't and just figuring it out. So... hopefully I can figure it out within the hour here. Actually, hopefully everything just comes over as is and then we're good to go. But a lot of times, as you know, that's not the case. So we'll have fun trying to figure it out.
That is true. Okay, everybody give me a second while I find the proper window so I can actually send this over to Jonathan. Not that one. Maybe this one. No, not that one. Like I said, when there's a guest here, there's so many more windows and things to open. Yeah, I'm not finding it, so I will just manually open it again. Go to my Google Drive. I'm on the other monitor. FYI. Drive. Make sure I'm in the correct account. And there's the folder. Now I find the file. And episode 5, scene files, Cube World 0. Drag it over, and it should be pretty dang small. So it already is saying it's synced on my side. It's, yeah, it's way less than a meg. So you should almost instantly get that.
Yep, I see it right here. So I'm actually going to start downloading it.
And I'll take a look at the chat for a moment. I'm actually going to, if you're ready, I'm going to switch over to your desktop.
Yeah, give me 1 second. It just downloaded. I'm going to throw it into my other folder here. Let me bring these down. Okay. Yeah, whenever you're ready, I'm opening up in Cinema right now.
But okay, we are now seeing everything on your screen. You are in control.
Cool. So yeah, there we go. So we have the scene playing in here. So as I said before, this is going to be an experiment in progress. And so first things first, I'm gonna hit Control D on my keyboard, come over here to Cineware, and then I'm just going to hit Save Polygon Cache and Save Polygon or Save Animation Cache. And I'm not going to save over this one. I'm actually just going to incremental save just in case. So I'm gonna just name this one version 02. Or do you have a different naming convention you like to use? I notice this is 1A here. So should I do 1B or?
Yeah, 1B would be my typical naming scheme, but you know, don't worry.
No, want to keep everything in line with the branding. So I'm going to save that out. Hopefully, oh, that saved out faster than I thought. So let me see what the file size is. So yeah, it only made it about 14.5 megabytes there.
Yeah,
so
the crazy one was when it was a volume. The volume builder was so many polygons. This one's way cleaner.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, all right, basically, let's get set up in Unreal Engine. Like, that's basically all we had to do there. So just again, you want to come down to Cineware, make sure you have everything checked here. We don't have any materials on here. What I can do is, well, let's see if it comes over to Unreal first before we worry about materials, because the cool thing now is we can actually update our scene in Cinema 4D, and we can have that update in Unreal as well. So it's not exactly like a live link, but you can like re-import and just have like everything kind of move over, which is cool. So you don't have to completely start from scratch anymore.
Kind of like if you save a Photoshop document and you have a material of that in Cinema, and you go back to Cinema and say refresh materials, and it sort of pops back in.
100%. Yeah. So whenever you, for those that aren't familiar, you have to go and download the Epic Games Launcher. You can just go to unreal.com, and then this is what you'll get whenever you install it. And so I have games turned off right now, but under Epic Games, they have a storefront that's like Steam as well. So if you're into gaming, they give away like free games every month or every week actually, which is pretty cool. But what you want to do is you want to come over to this library tab, and this is all the different versions of Unreal that I have saved on here. And so much like Cinema, they update pretty regularly. And so the latest version right now is version 4.26.1. And so I already have it open, but if you don't have it open, you just hit launch here and a little launch window will pop up. And then this is what's going to come up is your Unreal Project browser. And it shows you some of the past projects that you've actually been working on. But the thing I want to show you guys is down here where it says new project categories. This is actually new, starting in version 4.25. And so before, it was, like I said, Unreal's a game engine. Before, you only was able to pick different type of templates in games. Actually, I can show you guys real quick. So it gives you like a template for starting like first-person shooters, or if you want to make a flying game, a puzzler. It even has a virtual reality template and stuff that's pretty cool. And so before, they made that initial jump to try to jump into broadcast and movies and stuff. This is what you had to work with, which is how I started. But as we started giving them feedback, they started adding these other categories. So now we actually have a template for film, television, and live events. And so film, television, that's what our expertise is. And then live events, everybody talks about the Mandalorian, all the LED wall type stuff that they do back there. You have all that at your disposal here as well. So you don't even need like a giant LED Disney type studio. If you have just like a monitor or a TV set, you can still experiment at home. So if you want to make like your own little Mandalorian scene, using your 4K TV, you have absolute disposal of that here. And then these other categories we have is for ArchViz and construction, because a lot of architectural designers use Unreal to do like walkthroughs of, if they build out a house or if they're building a construction site, just to kind of give a real in-depth view of what that would look like, especially if you, throw the VR headset on people when they can walk through the house or the construction site. That's always cool. And then we have automotive templates here as well, which I would say like 85% of the automotive commercials you see on TV is actually done in Unreal Engine. Like, it does automotive photoreal really, really well. So I know like the guys over at the mill, if you go to their site, they have an actual breakdown of this custom car that has like all these QR codes all around it that they use as their template for all the car commercials. And so they have that live feed to Unreal Engine, and they can make practically any car on earth work within Unreal. I mean, it's pretty crazy, but not to get too sidetracked, just wanted to give you guys a little scope of, the different templates that we have here. So I'm going to go to film, television, and live events. I'm going to click on next. And then I don't really mess with any of these other ones. I always just start with a blank slate here. So I'm just going to click on blank, click on next again. And then it just gives us these options here. If you want to have starter content similar to Cinema 4D, it will give you some starter textures and models and different things that you can play with, much like the library that comes inside of Cinema 4D. But I usually put no content because it has to download all that stuff, and I believe it's a couple of gigs. And so over here, where it says ray tracing disabled, if you do have a 20 series card and above, you can actually work using ray tracing inside of Unreal Engine. And so I'm going to enable ray tracing. I have a 2080 Ti here. And then down here, I'm just going to save this to a M.2 drive. This one here, make a new folder called Rocket Lasso. And this is where I'm going to be saving. Yeah, I get pretty insane with it. I learned early on that it's good to have a backup of a backup of a backup. I've been on projects where, like something as simple as Photoshop will corrupt the texture, especially if it gets it to like a couple of gigs and stuff like that. And, I've lost entire projects. So now I'm just like, I have a NOS drive over here that's hooked up to external drives, and everything is constantly backing up. It's a little bit overboard, but, rather safe than sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to make a note to get another drive. Seems like a good idea.
Yeah, like anytime, I might have a problem because every time there's like a Black Friday or Cyber Monday sale and I get that email from Amazon, it's like, there's a 10 terabyte drive for like $100. I'm like, okay, send it to my house.
Hey,
send it to my house, I'll hook it up.
Better safe than never. Better safe than sorry, for sure.
So I'm going to let this load up here. It should only take a couple more seconds here. So what we're going to see now is the Unreal Engine. This is your viewport, and this is basically what it looks like when you first opening up. So down here, we have our content browser, and this is where all of our different things are going to go, our models, our project files, and everything else. But to be able to bring over our Cinema 4D file into Unreal Engine, we first have to activate the plugin. So you want to come up here to settings, and then there's a little checkbox here, or there's a little, a little area here called plugins. So I'm going to click on this, and then make sure you have all selected right here, because there's a whole bunch of different plugins that are inside of Unreal. In order to make it snappy, everything's not, enabled right off the top. So if there's something specific that you want, all you have to do is come over to the search bar, and if I type in C4D, you can see that it's called the Datasmith C4D importer, in which Datasmith is what enables any DCC to be able to work inside of Unreal Engine. So from Houdini to Maya to 3D Max, even Blender, a lot of those programs use this plugin called Datasmith to be able to import. So all you want to do is click enable here. It's going to tell you that it's still in beta, which crazy backstory is this Datasmith plugin, it was created by Epic Games. Like, Maxon had nothing to do with this importer here. And so it would really be interesting to see, like, now that they've been actively working on it, to see how much better this is going to get. But this is a beta version. It just gives you that warning there. You just click yes.
Didn't
And then you just,
didn't Maxon get one of the Epic grants to develop the bridge further?
yeah. So that's the crazy part about it, because once they saw a little bit of interest there, they took it upon themselves, Rick and the guys over at Maxon, and they said, we want to further implement this to work better within Unreal, especially after they seen how some of the other programs integrate. And so, this is just, a side project that Epic did on themselves. So, it's pretty impressive for what they were able to do. But once Maxon gets a hold of it, I can't really wait to see, how much better it's going to get.
Sure.
And so right now over here, the World Outliner, this is all the stuff that I have in my viewport here. So player start, that's because, like, if I zoom in here, you can see it's actually like an Xbox controller, because again, at the heart of this, it's a game engine. And so we're not doing any type of interactive running around or anything like that. So we don't need a player start. I'm just going to delete that. And then I think I'm going to take this floor that's here. I'm going to delete that as well. So basically, we're here with a reflection capture. We have our sky with our clouds. You can actually see those moving there. We have a sun right here. And then we have a skylight, which you can add HDRs and things of that nature if you wanted to add a little bit more detail to your lighting. But first, let's see how that project file comes over. So
Yeah.
I'm going to come up to Datasmith, and fingers crossed that this just works as is. So I'm going to go to my desktop, Rocket Lasso, Cube World right here. I'm going to click open. And then I'm just going to click on my content folder. Usually you won't have all this extra stuff, but I was doing some programming stuff in here. So that's why you see all these folders, but don't get, too concerned. Basically, you'll just have this content folder right here, which correlates with your content browser down here. So I'm going to click OK. And then this pops up right here. I'm going to leave everything checkmarked on, but this is something that's important when you're bringing over your scene into Unreal Engine. Basically, this is asking you, what do you want to bring in? So do you want to bring in your geometry, your textures, your lights, your cameras, and your animation? Sometimes you might only want to bring over geometry. Like, say you have like your world already built out. You built like a character or, like an item in Cinema, and you want to bring that into Unreal. So you might only want to have geometry and textures on here. And so this just gives you the options to let you know, this is what you want to import or not. So I'm going to actually just click everything. Just click import. And there we go. So it looks like this stuff came over.
Yeah, we didn't delete. Oh, that makes sense. We didn't delete the thing that was erasing out. So that there's another cloner that's in the cinema file that's at this point doing nothing. And it was visually hidden, but oh wow. You were able to turn that off even in here.
Yeah, it's able to turn it off. And if you look over here inside of our world outliner, so this is the interesting thing about when you use cloners and stuff inside of Unreal Engine. They don't have a MoGraph cloner natively in Unreal. So what it does, it tries to translate as best as possible, like taking stuff from Cinema into Unreal. And unfortunately for right now, basically it's bringing in every single cube as a separate item. So you remember when I said we had to leave the instance on inside of our MoGraph cloner? If you would have had multi-instance, you don't physically have that geometry there. So when you bring it into Unreal, it doesn't know to bring over geometry with it. So this is one of those things that I think that's going to improve over time. But yeah, that's just one of those caveats right now.
Well, to be fair, this is what's actually happening in Cinema as well. It's all just hidden inside of the cloner object.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, you're kind of getting to see the guts of it all, which, Maxon is really good about hiding. So we have a clean world outliner on the side. But let me come down here to my animation folder. So, okay, so down here in my content browser, let me make this a little bit larger, maybe so you can see it better. And so whenever you import your Cinema 4D file, whatever you named it, it's going to give you a folder here. And so, this is everything that's coming over from Cinema. So if I double click on this, this is my project file here that has a little star beside it. And then these are the folders that I brought over as well. So it brings over a materials folder, which we don't have any materials. Oh, actually we do have just the white material there. And then geometry. it shows us the cube here. So even though it brought them in all separately, it's only showing us one geometry here because that's basically all that we have. So if we do manipulate this one cube, it would just, it would do that over all of them here. So that's pretty cool as well. And then our animation here, if I double click on this brings up our timeline here, which is called our sequencer. And it basically baked everything for us. So remember when we were inside of Cinema and we clicked on that tab there for, what's it called? Yeah, save animation cache. That's basically telling it to bake all the animations for inside of that project file. That's why it makes your project file a lot bigger. Because remember, the original one was like 300 kilobytes, but once I clicked those on, it was like 15 megabytes, and that's exactly why. So let me click play.
Look
and
at that.
Oh snap! It actually worked. Nice.
Right out of the box.
That's crazy. All right, cool. Yeah, I was getting a little bit worried there for a second. So it actually
nesting cloners, yeah.
Yeah. Like you went kind of wild with it. I was in the back of my mind. I'm like, man, I hope this works, but I didn't want to hold you back. But
Every time I get something, you're like, no.
Well, that's like I like pushing the boundaries and seeing what's possible with it. And it's cool. It actually worked here. So yeah, no, kudos to you. Maybe we try to bring it in with the mesh. What do you think?
Oh, you mean the volume? That's just gonna be such a mess. This looks cooler than the volume did, so I think we just stick with this.
Okay, 100%. So let me see. I brought it up to 60 frames per second there, so you can actually see it running in real time at 60 FPS, which is really cool. So let's actually add like some type of environment or something to this. So let me come over here to my world outliner. And I have my sun running in real time right now. And so that was a thing I know a lot of people were kind of concerned about at first with the lighting and stuff. Everybody's always saying like, I don't want to bake my lighting. And the baking method is kind of like an old school method of working in Unreal, because a lot of those game systems, especially the older ones like the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, those were running on, limited hardware. So a lot of times to get over those limitations, they would bake the lighting. So it would bake the shadows and bake the reflections and everything. And it would allow those game systems to run at optimal speeds, usually at 30 FPS. But as we're getting better with the hardware, especially like with the Xbox Series X and the PS5, that's no longer the case. So I think Unreal 5, you're not even going to need, I don't even think it's going to have baking capabilities. Everything is just working in real time. So like any lights that you have in your scene here, you'll see down here for mobility, you always want to click it on movable, and that makes sure that your scene is 100% dynamic with the lighting, your shadows, your global illumination, and everything of that nature. And so let's see. Well, what do you think we should...
Well, two things. First of all, can you just hit play on that? I'm going to capture a GIF as it's playing.
Yeah, let me try to get a good viewport here and whiten this up.
All right, and now just give me 1 second. I'm going to try and get more people in from the internet to come join us because this is cool. Oops, that was the wrong button. Okay, 1 more second. Apologies. GIF. Go. Okay, good. Now, somebody in the chat was asking if it's possible to put a texture on it from Cinema 4D. So, like, how far could you push the materials inside of Cinema and then have them come over automatically?
Yeah, so let's make it happen. So this will actually give me a good point to show you how we could just re-import stuff and not have to totally start from scratch. So say that we're happy with this animation and how everything is, but we do want to add some textures to the cubes and stuff. So let me see if I come over to Megascans here. So Megascans Bridge. So for you that aren't familiar with Megascans, it's by a company called Quixel. What they do is they specialize in photogrammetry. So they travel the entire world, just taking millions and millions of photos of 3D objects, kind of like what we were talking about with reality capture. What they'll do is they'll take drones and they'll shoot like mountainside cliffs and, you know, like everything that you see here, these forest stumps. Let me actually show you an example here. So like this right here. So they went to Iceland and they made a photogrammetry object of this here. So I'm gonna make this full screen. So inside of the bridge, you're getting like a low res model of it, but you can bring it in up to 8K. is so like this rock right here, this is an actual real rock formation found in Iceland where they took thousands and thousands of photos, stitched them together, made a 3D object with the texture, and this is what you get, which is photoreal 3D assets there. And on top of being able to get like these giant cliffs and these rocks, they also have textures as well. So if I pull this up, they also do photogrammetry for textures, which also go up to 8K. So if you want to have like sand or a rocky road or even streets, like their library has gotten really huge since they were bought by Epic Games there. So this is pretty cool. I just used this one for a recent project. And so the reason I bring this up is because I'm just going to bring a texture in from Megascans and just show you how we could quickly export that out to Cinema 4D. So let me come down to surfaces here. And let's say if we want to get fancy with it, maybe we use like this granite right here.
Nice.
Which could look really cool there. So we have some granite. And what I want to do is come down
Can
here.
you bring two materials? Maybe we can put like 2 cubes in and get two different things mixing. So pick another
100%.
One.
So let me, first I got to set this up for cinema because the cool thing about this is, and I actually helped on the Redshift side of this, you can actually, let me come down here where it says export settings. So right here where it says export target, you can actually pick any program under the sun that you want to export these materials to. And the cool thing is say like, okay, so we click on Cinema 4D and it's saying that it's already installed because I installed it, but it will automatically recognize what render engine you're working in as well. So like if you're working in Octane, and you export this outer bridge into Cinema 4D, it will automatically convert that material to working in Octane. Or if you're working in Redshift, which I helped on that side, it will bring that material in for Redshift. So it's pretty much like playing with Legos. It's just drag and drop, and you don't have to, like take the albedo and take the normal maps and specular and kind of, node them up yourself. Like everything is just ready for you to drag and drop, and you're good to go.
Nice.
So that's a cool thing there. No matter what you're working in, Houdini, Blender, Unity, it's set up to work with everything under the sun, which is crazy. So if I come back here again and make sure I have Cinema selected here. So I have Cinema selected. And I'm just going to come down here to the lower right-hand corner where it says export. I'm actually exporting an 8K texture here. And it looks like it exported already. So let me lower this down. And there you go. So
it's already in there waiting.
Yeah, we have it right here. And it brought it into the color channel. It brought in our reflectance here. It looks like it didn't bring over a normal map, but it might not even have had one. So everything's already set up for us. So I'm just going to click and drag it onto this cube here. There we go. So now it's on the outside. And you said we want to try a second texture. Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
So let me, I don't know. What do you think here? Maybe this one here?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
yeah, that looks
so
cool.
we do this one here. I'm actually going to download it. Thought it might have been downloaded already, but it should move pretty quick here. So if you look right here, you can actually see the queue right here for downloading, and it's going pretty quick. So it looks like it's ready to go. So I'm going to click on export from here.
Okay, so you just downloaded it to Quixel, and now you're exporting it to Cinema.
Yeah, 100%. And you'll want to make sure that, let me see, if I come down here to download settings. Yeah, so it asks you all the different things that you want to download here, like your albedo, if you want a curvature, gloss, like it gives you all different type of images that you could download. But I thought this is where you would set it up at. Maybe not. But yeah, basically you're downloading it to a hard drive that you choose. And so like when you click download, it's always going to be on your hard drive. So you don't have to keep downloading these over and over again. Once you have it downloaded, you can just pretty much come down here and hit export. So let me drag it onto this cube here.
Yeah, what you're going to want to do is make two copy one cube as a brother of the other one, and then the same on this one. Yeah, we want 2 and 2. Yeah.
So something like that?
Yeah, and do the same on the other one. So make 2 cubes. We just have to keep the hierarchies identical. So make a duplicate of that one, and then make the, and make the bottom one also the granite. There you go. So now they should be perfectly intermingled.
All
Two
right,
different
cool.
types.
So yeah, we got some cool stuff going there. So I'm going to hit Control D on my keyboard. And then I'm going to hit Save Material Cache right here. And then right here, I'm actually going to make the format PNG 16-bit. And you saw that we had an 8K texture, but for time's sake, maybe I just make it 4K.
Just
So I'm not
4K.
sure.
No problem.
Yeah. I'm not sure how the 8K, how long that's going to take to save. So I'm going to hit Control S on here. Let this save out. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. Yeah, we should be good to go there.
Pretty quick.
So I'm going to come back over to Unreal Engine. Come down here to my content browser. And remember, well, actually, I'll do it from the top here. So I'm in my content browser. Double click on my folder here that has all my cinema stuff. And then right here, where we have this box with the red underlining here, this is how we re-import our different stuff. So if I right click on here, and if you come up to the top, we have some import options. So I can actually just hit re-import, and this should automatically just update. Or let's say like if I incremented save that project file, I can actually click right here where it says re-import with new file, and then bring that one in. And as long as it's kind of like the same project, it's just going to update it. So say like I did version 3, and then I tell it bring in version 3 instead. As long as the naming conventions and everything's still the same inside of your cinema project, it should recognize everything. So I'm actually just going to click re-import. And then we're not changing anything out. Like I should, actually, let me test it here. So we didn't change anything except for the materials and textures.
No, we did change the cube. We made an extra cube.
Oh, we did. Okay. So yeah, let me actually just click everything on just to be safe. And then down here it says Datasmith scene actors. So I think I'm going to leave this one checked on. I can't remember what respawn deleted actor. Oh, you know what? So if we deleted stuff inside of Unreal Engine and we wanted to bring it back, if we click on this when we re-import, it's actually going to bring it back into Unreal Engine. So say like we deleted something here on accident, we can't get it back. If we re-import it, it's going to bring it back as it should be.
But if everything was identical, then you did delete things you intentionally wanted to, and this would keep those deleted.
Yeah.
So that's
the
best of both worlds.
Yep, 100%. So it's re-importing right now. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. And it looks like, did it not bring the textures in? Actually, it did, I think. Let me see. So materials, and sometimes the materials come over kind of funky from Cinema 4D. So if I double click on my material here, it brings up this material window. So it actually did bring our materials over, even though it's really washed out. You can kind of see it there.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes, like the way that the reflectance channels in cinema, and they already know this, like it's kind of weird the way that they do reflectance now. And so sometimes if you come in here and turn off your reflections channel, I think it's actually it's this one here up top, I believe. Yeah, there we go. So use reflectance color. That will bring your texture back in as it should be. Then I'm just going to click save here. And now you can see that we have it inside of Unreal Engine here. But a thing that I like to do is, let me see, it might be a little bit crazy because of all the different clones. Let me see if geometry, because sometimes I like to just export it out from Megascan's bridge and work with textures directly in Unreal Engine.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you to try next.
A lot cleaner.
Yeah. So skip the cinema step. Yeah. I was
just going to see, because I don't want to do it per block here. So I was going to see if it it looks like it didn't actually bring in a bunch of different cubes. Because usually if you just double click on the cube there, so whatever we do to this one, it would do it to all of them.
Sure.
But it doesn't look like that's the case there. But yeah, let's try it out anyway and see. So I'm going to come down here, export settings, make sure I have Unreal Engine selected, and then I'm going to export. There we go. So now you can see it importing inside of Unreal Engine here. If I come over to my content browser, now you can see that I actually made a folder for Megascans here. And yeah, you want to make sure you have this green button here. That means Megascans is activated in Unreal. If you don't see that here, then it's not going to import it. So just make sure you see that first before you export. But let me come down here to mega scans, surfaces, and then the onyx. And here we go. So now we have our material. And if I click and drag it onto here, now
my
it looks
goodness.
a lot nicer. Yeah.
But you were able to do it on a single cube instead of all of them. So if you were so inclined, you could have 100 different materials and drop them individually on 100 different clones.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, in cinema, we can't apply material easily to a single clone.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, I guess that's true, yeah. But the caveat is I'd have to see why this is the case, because I've done it before to where, like, okay, so we have these cubes that have this single texture. I should be able to just, like, take a cube and then have that applied to all of them.
I see. Or is there any kind of find and replace feature or anything like that?
Let me see. I'm sure there is, not to my knowledge, but I might be able to do it this way. So you can select them in groups here. So if you're in your world outliner, and I just selected this whole group here, and then I just click and dragged, and it changed it for all of them that were in that group. So that's a way of doing it as well.
You might be able to search for the word cube in the top bar too, and have all the cube objects easily selectable. But I'm not super familiar with Unreal.
Yeah, this is the part that gets a little bit funky sometimes, but yeah, if the materials came over better from Cinema, that wouldn't be an issue. Actually, let me rename these. So let me so I'm going to name it Cube Orange and then Cube Dark. And maybe if I rename them and re-import, maybe it will recognize them there.
Sure.
So I'm going to click on, and actually the volume measure, I could delete this, right?
Yeah, that would probably help actually.
So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to save it again. And then I'll try to re-import it into Unreal Engine. So I'm going to come over here, right click, re-import. Should be good. Dev Smith scenes. Okay, so it did change the naming convention in the world outliner.
It did remember the materials you manually placed, which continues to be impressive.
Yeah, so it practically just updated the naming convention that we had here. So like you said, let's type in dark maybe.
Oh yeah, it auto-selected seemingly.
Auto-selected everything under dark. So let me actually come back to bridge. I think it was this one here. So I'm going to export this out to Unreal. And then I should be able to come over the materials here and just drag and drop it. So I'm going to come back to my mega scans, still gray here. Click on this right here. So this one right here where it says still gray, those are the ones that I'm going to want to select. And boom, there we go. And so let me type in orange. It looks like that did that. Or maybe someone changed it down here.
There you go.
So I think that's it, yeah?
Yeah, looks like.
Then click save here and play, and there we go.
There you go.
So we got something pretty cool there. You could throw up on the gram if you want it. You know, you could go. Go ahead.
Oh, no, please continue. I'll interject when it's appropriate.
Yeah, so actually, I'm going to change this back to 60 FPS. I just like 60 frames per second because it's really smooth. So I'm trying to think what else we could show off here. Actually,
well, just because it'd be something weird and unique. Well, first of all, playing with some lighting, but it would be kind of neat if you did bring back in the floor and then the character thing, just because you could walk around, right?
Let's see. We can, since we're inside of broadcast, like when I did the broadcast template, it didn't come in with that template, but I believe I can actually, let's make it ground. Let me zero this out. And if Logan's still in the chat, I know he would be able to assist me on this one, but I believe I come over to add an import, and then where's it? Add feature, content pack. Okay, here we go. So I can actually import the third person to bring our character in here. And I should be able to bring the character in now. So let me see if I come down to blueprint. I believe I have to come over to world settings, go into game mode and third person game mode, I think. So this might work, might not work. Yeah,
It looks
there
like
we
it
go.
worked, dude. Instantly.
So we're in our.
It's not playing, but you are running
What?
around inside it. The
So,
animation isn't running.
yeah. So let me. Okay. So we should be able to. There is a way because I figured this out before. I was actually trying to make like a Mario Brothers type game
Hmm.
instead of Unreal. So I was using actually like fractures from Cinema 4D, bringing those in. So whenever you hit the block, like the actual dynamics from the cube from Cinema would break the block open. So there was a way that I could have it playing. I can't think of. Dang. Okay. Yeah, because there was a way that you could have it playing during runtime.
Yeah. I
In
unfortunately have
here.
no idea where it might be.
Yeah, it's one of those things I'd have to find. But yeah, there is a way you can have your MoGraph cloner playing inside of your runtime whenever you have it in game mode like that.
Logan says, quick level blueprint to activate the animation sequence.
So quick level blueprint. Where's he at? Is he in Twitch
YouTube.
or YouTube? Okay.
But he's going to be
Pop
30
over
seconds behind
to
us.
now pop over to world settings. Okay. Change again mode to third person. Boom. I did that. All right. Quick level blueprint to activate animation sequence. I'm not sure what he means by that one.
Quick level blueprint. Yeah, I don't know what a quick level blueprint is.
So this is a blueprint here. Create blueprint from selection, new class. Yeah.
That's okay. I mean, we don't need to
That's it.
be focused on something we're not sure of how to do.
But yeah, it's possible. I'll figure it out. Then I'll let you guys know. And then maybe that could be something
Yeah,
in
but
the
even just
update or
running
something.
around,
But
I mean, even though it's like we can animate any camera we want in cinema, there is something that is instantly appealing about making something and now you can run around inside of it.
oh, dude, like I did this on a Twitch stream one night. Like I made like I took like the geometric data from I want to say either the Himalayas or Mount Everest, like over in Nepal,
Yeah.
and I made the scene, brought it into Unreal, and then threw like a go-kart in there, and I was just driving all around the scene. Like it was more fun just instead of working on the actual scene itself. It's just more kind of satisfying just being able to navigate around this environment that you created. I mean, camera moves are fun and stuff, but just doing this type of stuff, I mean, we're not used to this, so I know for me, it's just kind of like it gives me a kick just being able to be like, look at what I made. Now I could just interact with it, like this almost looks like a museum piece.
Yeah. The I don't think it's something that we'd be able to achieve right now. I'm certain there's a way to do it, but because we were working with very simple geometry here, in the fact that they are just cubes, how hard would it be to make them colliders? So that would be something that the character that potentially could be dynamic, or that the character could jump on top of. Is that something that have to be manually done on every single cube? Would it have to have its own collider imported onto it?
No, so I should be able to come to my content browser and then come to my cinema folder here and then come down to geometry. So this is where this one cube that is basically all these cubes comes into play. So if I double click on this, I should be able to add collision to this one cube, and this should do it for all of them. So I'm going to do simple, I think I do it here. Simple collision is save. Hopefully this works. No, that didn't do it. So I know it's in here. Let me see. Let me select it again. Collision, simplify box. I think that's it.
Yeah,
there.
there's now a green outline on it. That looks promising.
So let me come back here to play. Now I'm stuck inside of the box.
You spawned inside.
Let me see where my character is. Move him out here a little bit. There we go.
Bonk.
So yeah,
Okay,
now
yeah. So see if you can jump up on some of them.
you see. Let me find one that's pretty low here.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, there we go. So, there you go. You said you're into Minecraft. You can literally make your own Minecraft level here now.
Yep.
And what's cool is this will automatically map to your controller. So if you have like an Xbox controller, like I'm using keyboard and mouse right now, but if you actually have like an Xbox controller, which I use a lot, it would actually automatically map it to your Xbox controller. So you don't have to know any programming and stuff for simple stuff like running and jumping, things of that nature. So that's really cool too.
That
So
is awesome. Logan had said that he was going to attempt to send you a node setup, but that was a couple minutes ago, so I'm not sure how he might go about that. But that looks awesome. Yeah, I mean, the only thing we're missing is that moving around. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about just some lighting stuff in general, about how you might go about lighting things in this?
yeah, so
Somebody
there
saying
is
animation underscore sequence drop in level, but I don't know what that means in YouTube.
animation drop in sequence. Let me see. Animation. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, if they could say where it's at.
Yeah. I
Animation
apologize. It seems
underscore
like it's a
sequence.
Russian name, so I don't know how to pronounce it. But if you can be more specific, we're not quite sure where you might be referencing. But yeah, being able to run
Yeah.
and instantly interact. If we can get it animated, that would be the ultimate thing. And if these have these nice, simple box colliders, I'd be curious if the character would grip onto them or would be sliding around them. But yeah, we gotta see if we can get that working.
Yeah, like stuff like that, like doing Assassin's Creed type stuff, being able to like grab and jump up. Like they actually have that type of stuff here.
Oh
I
yeah, like
think
climbing,
actually,
like surface climbing mechanics and that type of thing.
exactly. So this is actually that's something cool we could get into the marketplace here. They have a really extensive library, and anything that you buy in the marketplace, you can automatically just send over to your project file. So you can actually see we have some cool animation here for like a samurai type bundle. So if you want to make like a samurai type game, but the cool thing here is where it says free for the month, it actually picks out, they like hand pick out and create like 5 free items every month that they give to you absolutely free. So if I come over to my library, like I've been collecting for a few years, so my library is pretty massive. Like I can make a arcade space shooter if I want, or we have this enemy boss battle type pack here that looks pretty cool. So yeah, that's something like if you want to do what you're talking about, I would definitely go to the marketplace, just explore because there's probably something already built out for you in there. Even with like so like say you don't want to program some stuff, you go to the marketplace, look for it, like even simple stuff like doors opening up, which would maybe be like an extensive blueprint. You could go to the marketplace, find a blueprint for that, and then just add it to your scene. So it's pretty cool, all the different stuff that you could do in here with Unreal with the marketplace as well.
Yeah, it's honestly overwhelming with how many different things there are. Um,
But
that's what he double clicks. He says when you double click that time slider, the thing you open up the time slider, then there should be a drag and drop animation sequence somewhere. I'm still not seeing it, but somebody's attempting.
yeah, because I thought I've
Yeah.
done it over here before, but he's saying it's inside a sequencer. Drag and
Yeah,
drop
there's
animation sequence into the level. So I wonder if he means this. So I have that there now. Let me click play.
no.
Yeah, so it's not working. I wonder if we need to turn the sequencer on somewhere. Oh, here we go, autoplay. So let's see. Move to a good part in my level here. And the way I'm able to navigate around my scene so fast is it's actually like gaming keyboard controls. So your WASD.
Oh,
If I
okay.
hold down the right click on my mouse and I'm moving around, like if you're used to playing like Call of Duty or Doom or anything like that, like that's exactly how you
There you go.
control it. Ah, there you go. Sick.
Sorry, they
Thank you
still. Oh my
guys in
god,
the
yeah, you can
chat.
still. Oh,
But
it's only going to be
it didn't load.
180 frames long. It's probably not going to repeat. Maybe there's a repeat checkbox, but even the animation wasn't set up to repeat.
Nope, there we go. Loop. There we go. So
can it back and forth or? Oh yeah, it's going to suddenly pop at a certain time. But besides that, that should be fine.
Let me see. So play. There we go. So it's looping. That should be.
Now see if you can run in and get from one side to the other.
There you go.
Oh no!
There you go. Actually, the loop just stopped in the middle.
Yeah, the loop is going to pop every once in a while, but
yeah, I'm like all discombobulated now.
And apparently, there's also a rate for the playback, so maybe we could slow it down. But these are we're just playing around now. It's just fun. But yeah, I assume it didn't autoplay because it was waiting for some sort of Unreal command, like from code, to be like, oh, play if this condition.
Yeah.
So this autoplay is just going to trigger it right out of the gate. But yeah, now we've got the animation actually playing.
So you can actually set up triggers too. So like if you walk over a certain hitbox, and then that would trigger that animation there. So yeah, there's all types of cool stuff you can add in there.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a little bit of time. If anybody has any specific questions about this, please put it in the chat. But for now, I would love to see just a little bit of lighting stuff, just playing around, any illumination, any kind of anything in here, just because a lot of people are interested in Unreal for its rendering capabilities. So now that we're in this real-time world, what are some options?
Okay, so your light source that you start off with here, if I come down to my transform tab, let me just reset it. So basically, this is it's acting as our sun there. So if I move the Y and the Z, I could get some cool lighting and everything in here with it. And you can actually add more than one in here. Then if I come over here to my place actors under lights, we have directional light, which we're using now. You have point light, spotlight, rectangular light, your skylight, which is how you could drop HDRs in here. But if you actually want to drop like an HDR that you can see in here, they just added this right here called HDR backdrop. So if I click and drag this into my scene, maybe it didn't like that, or might just take a second. There we go.
Yeah.
So now I have an actual HDR that if I have like an HDR from like HDR at Haven or something, now we have an HDR that we could use as like our backdrop, and it actually physically illuminates our scene too. So let me see. If I click on this, you can see the ground is a little bit stretched out. Just this little purple diamond in here. If I click on this, you should be able to. Yeah, so if I drag it up, you can see that now it's giving us some flexibility there.
Yeah.
Like you more want to use this for higher res HDRs. Like this is the default one that we have in here, but I know they use this for like product placement and maybe some like car viz type stuff. But yeah, if you want to drop an HDR that you shot in there, like, if we pull back a little bit, you can come out of it. Like it's pretty much like a half dome there. And so that's just something to be leery of. But yeah, that's an option for lighting as well. And then let me pull in some of the ray tracing stuff. So if I come over to, let's say, where's that? Visual effects right here, where it has post-process volume. You want to click and drag this into our scene. Mm-hmm. And so basically you see this little cube in here. The way that this works is you can either have it kind of engulf your entire scene, or you can have it affect only the stuff that's inside this cube. So say you have like a game and you want to change like the lighting sequence, and like inside of a house, it's going to be lit differently than outside. So you can set up these cubes, and then, like everything will change accordingly. And so I have post-process volume selected right here. If I come over to search, I'm just going to type in UNB, and that brings up our setting for infinite, extend, unbound. So if I click on this, that means anything that we do now inside of our post-process volume would just engulf the entire scene. So if I come down here, we could just kind of look through some of the options we have here. Like one of my favorites here is bloom. So if I click this on and then intensity, you can see that we're getting some pretty cool bloom effects in here. Something like that. If you want like a dreamy sequence, or even if we add a light in here, we get some real-time lens flares going on in here, which is really, really cool. Stuff like that. So that's the thing that I like the most, is like with lens flares, they're all realistic. Like you don't have to add anything in post or anything. Like it interacts with the camera the way that it's supposed to. So I could turn
Yeah.
down the intensity, or it has two methods here. One is standard, which is more for, like your abstract stuff, or like if you just want to kind of dial it in yourself, or if you come down to convolution, it tries to make it as realistic as possible. Like this is more intended for your renders and your cinematics and things of that nature. Actually, let me click on this light because it's telling me that the light needs to be rebuilt, which I'm going to make it movable. So now it's running in real time. We don't have to worry about that. So if I come back down here, let me go through some more of these settings here. Let me see. So we have exposure settings down here. So if I come down to like exposure compensation, if I click 0, now this basically turns it down. So basically all of our lighting that we dial in and everything is going to be absolute instead of basically working off of what Unreal thinks it should be.
Hmm.
So if I didn't turn my exposure compensation down, basically what Unreal tries to do is I'm trying to think of how I should say it. So okay, so like if you're inside of a house and like when you go outside in the daytime, how your eyes have to like adjust to the sun. So it might be a little bit blowing out when you first step outside, but then your eyes adjust and then you're able to see fine. So Unreal does that automatically, and that's what this exposure compensation is. So that's why when we had it up to 1, it's a little bit more blown out and not really as realistic. And that's because if we fly around our scene, and it actually works better like if you're in a dark area and then come out, but it will try to compensate for like the realistic sunlight as it would interact with your eyes. But if you bring it to 0, you eliminate that, and so whatever you do with your lighting is going to be absolute.
Okay.
So
That's cool. I mean, yeah, both of those are really powerful.
yeah, so it's all about how you want to light your scene and how realistic you want it to be, or if you just want to light it to look nice. But then we have some chromatic aberration built in here. That's really cool.
Nice.
And that works all in real time as well. And then if you wanted to add like a dirt mask to your lens, I don't have any on hand, but you can actually just bring in like a dirt mask image. Let me see if we have anything here. Yeah, that one's not working. But yeah, if you wanted to have something actually like dirty up your lens a little bit so the lighting interacts with that and stuff, you have that option there. And then we also have some camera settings for your ISO and your shutter speed, which would control some of your lighting. But I don't like doing it in here. I'd rather do that from my actual camera that I bring into my scene. But that's something, for like a whole nother, you could go hours into how the camera's set up. Because they try to mimic a real camera as much as possible in there. So like if you understand how a camera works, you automatically understand how everything works in Unreal. And then our lens flare here. You could turn up intensity. You could change bokeh sizes, things
Oh,
of
that's
that
cool.
nature there. So yeah, all this stuff they give you at your disposal, really, really cool. We have some depth of field, which again, you want to do more inside of your camera more than anything. You don't want to do it here. But this is probably one of the biggest things that's really cool inside of Unreal for the lighting setup and your color grading. We actually have realistic color grading tools. Like if you're working in like Blackmagic Resolve, or I mean DaVinci, we have these color wheels here. So you can actually pull down saturation. You have control over your contrast here. And if
Wow.
you're like into color grading, you should be really familiar with these tools. Like we even have white balancing tools. So you could change the temperature here, make it cooler, make it warmer, change the tint color. I mean, this stuff is like really cool and really in depth. If I scroll down here, we can even have complete control over the shadows, the midtones, the highlights, and oh, we can also add LUTs to it as well. So if I click down here where it says color grading LUTs, if I come over to my marketplace, which I should already have some packs here, let me see. And if you have any questions, just stop me whenever.
Oh, totally. I mean, yeah,
But
you haven't needed me to because you keep saying interesting things.
but if I come into my store here, actually, this was one of the packs they gave away free, but it's called the Amplified LUT pack. And so if I wanted to add LUTs to my scene, as you can see here in the description, all I have to do is click on add the project, and then let me find the Rocket Lasso project. So I'm going to find that, add the project, then just wait for this to download. But it should automatically show up in my scene here. So yeah, in my content browser, amplified LUT pack, and then this works pretty much like Magic Bullet looks here. So let's say I want to go under popular looks. We have our LUTs here. And say like I want to do Blockbuster. Boom. There we go. So
Brilliant.
now we actually can control LUTs packs in here, which is really cool in itself as well.
Yeah.
And then just coming down, we have cool stuff like ambient occlusion. So you can kind of see it there. Yeah, see when I take it
That
up.
makes a big difference. Yeah.
Yep, bring it up there. And then coming down, we have ray tracing, ambient occlusion, which I don't know if you could tell a big difference inside the viewport there. Probably not. But yeah, ray tracing makes it a lot better. And then global illumination, this one, especially with ray tracing, it makes it crash a lot. But what the guys over at Epic told me is there's actually a beta for global illumination under edit. If I come down to project settings, and if I search for screen space, so screen space, global illumination, this is actually a more efficient global illumination than the ray tracing. So let me see if we actually see a difference. Yeah, so look down here in the shadowy areas. There you go. Totally. So you can see we have our global illumination, and this one actually works in real time and won't give you any issues. So that's just a tip there. Don't use the ray tracing one. Use that one that we saw there. And then, yeah, motion blur, and we have reflections down here. Could turn on ray tracing or screen space, which you can see a huge difference there. So this is without ray tracing on reflections. Then this is ray tracing on.
Yeah.
So you can see a huge difference in the quality there. And that can even raise the quality up more down here. Turn up and down the intensity. So yeah, I think that's about it for all the ray tracing stuff. We don't have anything that's translucent. So, but you also have ray tracing, translucency. And what ray tracing does, it basically tries to mimic the way that your materials and your lighting and your reflection work in the real world, just calculated wise. And so it tries to give you a more realistic effect. So that's why with like the NVIDIA 20 series cards is where it started, and they were making a big deal about it. But with the 30 series cards, it's supposed to be even faster and even better. I'm still waiting for like the 3090s to come in stock. So as of right now, I'm still stuck with the 2080 Ti. But yeah, I mean,
would you
that's
mind
basically it there.
Popping up, making a camera and showing some of the depth of field?
Yeah,
dude, that lens flare looks so cool.
Let me come over to cinematic. So this is the camera that we're going to just use, the cinematic camera. You just click and drag it into your scene, and it gives us a picture-in-picture box, so you can kind of see what the camera's seeing as you're trying to align it up. So let me actually rotate this somewhere around there. And actually, we could just look through the camera. If I come over here to perspective, and I come down to cinematic viewport, this actually gives us a better resolution of what we're looking at here. Like it makes it 16:9. And then if I come down to camera, this is actually what our camera looks like. So now I just control it how it would before with the WASD. Let me try to find a good area. Oops, what did I click here? All right, cool. So I'm not sure if we're going to get a good depth of field here, but let me try anyway.
Sure.
So if I come over here to my camera and come down here to my settings, scroll these up, we should have in focus settings down here. And what's really cool is we can actually visually see where our depth of field should be. So if I click down here where you see this like this purple bar where it says draw debug focus plane, if I turn this on, it makes a purple box here. You can see it in the distance, but if I use like this color picker and pick something there, it brings it more to the forefront. And so this is where our depth of field is basically going to be.
That's
so
the focus.
This plane, this plane shows you what the focus is going to be. So like if you can't really tell just looking in the viewport, this gives you a visual representation of where the focus should be at. And so I believe it's focus. I always get these mixed up down here. Yeah, let me see. Focus method. Someone in the chat could probably tell me a little bit better. Yeah, I'm not getting depth of field too great in here.
Yeah, not something I know anymore. What's funny is our YouTube audience seems to be the ones who are more knowledgeable right now in Unreal than the Twitch audience. It's just interesting how those separate out that way.
Yeah, I have a. I'm pretty sure I have some people in here that saw the post and stuff. What are
Yeah,
they
totally.
saying on YouTube?
Well, yeah, people. Oh, first of all, people are super shouting out your course, which obviously everybody you can see that you want to go check out.
Yeah.
Jonathan's course over on mograph.com. Uh, we've got Punisher in the chat, who is
Oh, what's
Clint.
up, Clint?
Yeah, Clint Jones is here. Welcome. He says zoom in low aperture.
Bring the aperture down. Yeah, that's what I was doing.
Had to go like extreme, real tiny.
It's not letting me
Is that
go
the
under
lowest it can go?
1.2, but I might have to change my focal length. Let me reset this. Yeah, this was where like camera knowledge would come into play. Like I said, it tries to replicate real camera settings as much as possible. I usually have to look this stuff up, but there we go.
There you go. Well, what did you suddenly change? I looked away for a split second at the chat, and suddenly you had depth of field. Yeah,
Okay,
focal
so
length. Yeah, focus
focal
distance.
length,
Yeah,
I had
high
to change
focal
my
length.
yeah. So yeah, if it was further, if there's stuff further back, you probably see more of a dramatic
Oh,
change
yeah,
between
totally.
like the foreground and background. But yeah, you can see this stuff here. Let me pull up the plane here. Let me see if I could get it just to where. Yeah, so that's not.
Yeah, well, everything's so close to us now that there's not much room for it. Is that? Oh no, there's definitely some now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
So
level.
okay, so there we go, right there. So yeah, it definitely depends on how close everything is, and then of course like your lens that you're using here. Like I'm using a 16:9 digital. I don't know like the difference between like super 16 millimeter or millimeter and stuff like that, but I'm sure that all comes to play as well. But yeah,
Dude,
just
that's
play around with those
ha-
settings there to get your depth
so.
of field.
All the things that you've been adding, both with the camera and the post effects, how much of this will translate into if you hit play in the video game mode?
Let's see, because this is in camera.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that stuff didn't like the stuff that's inside the post process volume, like the you can see the lens
Yeah.
flare and the LUTs and all that stuff come into play. But yeah, the stuff that's in camera, like the depth of field, you would have to do that with a different method
Sure.
since we're
Well, even
actually
right
looking in the
now,
third
yeah.
person view.
Yeah, so there's probably a third person character camera that we've now linked to, but you were doing a cinematic camera, which would have been probably a completely unrelated one.
Yep, 100%.
Awesome. All right. Well, first of all, do you have a hard out at, well, essentially in about 6 minutes would be the official ending time. Do you have to go right there, or would we be able to stop, like wrap up a question? I don't want to.
Yeah, no, we could wrap up a question. Yeah, I still got like 30 minutes.
Okay,
So yeah,
cool.
we're good.
Yeah, you have somebody to go pick up, and we don't want you to have to miss that. So, any last questions here for Jonathan while we have him? I'm going to make sure to put a link to his course over on mograph.com. So, everybody should go check that out because obviously there is a lot of good information to learn. It's amazing how. Everything we've seen on your screen, like we could do that in cinema, but there's just a switch that flips in your head where it's like, oh, I can run around this, I can interact with it, I can jump on top of it. And probably even this entire setup, if you're inclined, you can probably copy this entire like whirlwind and then turn it 90 degrees and have one spinning vertically. And like as these things could layer up with different materials. I even saw you were able to select a single cube and move that one cube and offset that a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah. So you're able to
Like
make
that,
those
yeah.
changes. I wonder, is that on top of the animation it would naturally be having?
No, it should pop back into place. So let me, because you see down here, we have all the keyframes that
Yeah.
are down here. So you can manually do the keyframes, but it baked every single keyframe there from the MoGraph cloner. So that would be kind of a task and a half, to move. So let me see. I move this one here. You click play. Oh, actually it did. Okay. Never mind. It made me a liar. So it did, it did take that block. Let me see. Move this up here.
Wow, look at
it
that.
picked up where,
Wow,
okay,
that's
so yeah.
amazing. So it's almost like it's in a null, and you're offsetting the null, and the sub object was keyframes. But you
So,
might just be changing the pivot. I don't know such things, but that's really powerful.
so we're learning stuff as we go.
Yeah, every
That's the cool
time.
thing about it. You're just always learning. So, but this is probably the biggest point to show that everybody loves. So I brought my camera down here into my sequencer window, which is my timeline, and it made a camera cuts track, which basically you need this to render out. So you just click on the camera just to make sure you're seeing what's inside of the camera there. And then if I wanted to render this scene out per se, I come up to Window, Cinematics, Movie Render Queue, which is the new way of rendering because this gives us more ways to render. So actually I need to save this first, my sequencer, come up here, and then I'm just going to select this. This is basically the naming convention for my sequencer here. So this brings up this tab here in which I could say if I want to render out a JPEG, or we actually have Apple ProRes now, which is cool. We can actually export out directly to Final Cut Pro. You have EXR, PNG, and then you have some render passes down here for lighting and path tracing and reflections, which is cool in itself. And then we also have anti-aliasing and things of that nature. But I'm just going to give you a quick look into real-time rendering. So I'm going to come up. I'm just going to name this render, and then select my folder, and I'm just going to leave it at 1920 1080, and we should be good to go here. So this is the part that everybody loves to see. I'm just going to hit render local, and we didn't change the focal length, but you can see right now it's rendering right before our eyes. Like you can see the frame count flying up, and there we are. We're basically done rendering, done. So that's the part everybody loves to see there, and it's always cool. Like, of course, the more complex of the scene, it's going to take, depending on your computer, it might take a little bit longer, especially once you start adding in like volumetrics and stuff like that. Like if I come over and let me see where it's at, visual effects, we have exponential height fog, which I can add fog into my scene fairly easy. So now you can see we have some fog in here, which looks really nice and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, the more stuff you add to it, the heavier you make it, it's going to make it a little bit longer to render, but it's still a lot faster than the alternative,
Yeah, VRuckus actually has a good question, which is, and it could, well, the question is, there has to be some sort of cost and quality or something for making it real time, and what is the cost? But as you're saying, there's certain effects here that's going to slow it down no matter what. It wouldn't be able to render in real time at full res, but in general, what would your thought be on that?
There is some stuff like, I know VDBs is a big thing that I'm missing in here. So like the Pixel Lab had a VDB pack that just came out. You can't easily use VDBs inside of Unreal because, VDBs are heavy, and that would kind of, just kill all the real timeness inside of Unreal. So they do have a workaround called sprite sheets, which Houdini does really well. So if you bring like a VDB into Houdini, export out a sprite sheet, and it would actually use that sprite sheet in Unreal to simulate, like the cloud or the fire explosion, things of that nature. And then there's actually a program being developed called Embergen, which is like all real-time smoke and fire and stuff that will directly import into Unreal. But just taking like a straight VDB file into Unreal is pretty much impossible. So that's one setback there.
Well, I guess it goes to if you kept throwing. I know Unreal's got some incredible stuff coming down the pipeline as well. But like, if the setup we have, we don't have to do it. But if you were to copy this again and then again and again and again and again, at a certain point, it's not going to be able to handle that much stuff in the scene, right?
You'd be surprised.
I know, and I mean, some of those demos they've shown are absolutely insane. But yeah, I don't know. Oh, it's still an interesting question of like where is the cost now that it's real time. I mean, you're not going to be able to get too much in the way of like amazing refractive properties and.
It's coming Unreal 5.
Yeah, no, there's good stuff in it. Yeah.
Yeah, with ray tracing, like before ray tracing, there was definitely a huge hit in quality compared to your offline renderers, like your Octanes and your Redshift and V-Rays and things of that nature, which, funny enough, they actually do have an Octane plugin for Unreal Engine. They have a V-Ray plugin. So some of your offline renderers do actually work in Unreal, which is funny. But with, the push for ray tracing, it's just making that quality gap that much smaller. So unless you have like a really, really keen eye, you probably wouldn't tell a difference. Like I said, if you check out the stuff they do at the mill, like all those car commercials, that's all running in Unreal Engine, and you wouldn't even tell that they were fake cars. Like, I mean, it's just getting pretty and crazy.
Yeah, well, that is true. There's not necessarily that much of a cost.
But it depends on your system as well. Like, you can't just come in with a Tandy 1000 and work.
Yeah, well, as you've been saying, a lot of these things have come online in the last couple generations of video cards. Before that, a lot of these things wouldn't have even been possible.
Yeah, 100%. Maybe even 2 years ago, you wouldn't have this type of quality. Like, it would still look pretty gamey,
So let's see. Okay, we're pretty much at the end here. Somebody's asking, is there anything in Unreal 5 that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, the particle engine in Unreal 5 looks really cool. Just being able to do away with like displacement maps and normal maps. Like, again, I've not touched Unreal 5, so I don't know how it's going to work. But in theory, what they were saying is like you could take actual Hollywood game model, or not game models, like Hollywood models, like before the pipeline was like if you're working at Industrial Light and Magic on like Star Wars and you have like a really, really high res asset there, say like a statue with a ton of detail that someone created in ZBrush, you would have to bring it over as like a decimated form just to work inside of Unreal, especially, if you're making like a game or something in that aspect. But what they're saying, and then to get the detail back, you bring in normal maps and displacement maps and things of that nature. But what they're saying now is you can actually take those high polygon, high detailed objects and bring them directly into Unreal 5 so that you're getting the same cinematic quality that you were having, with Industrial Light and Magic using something like Clarice or something of that nature. So being able to just take like these insane ZBrush models into Unreal and just having the detail be in the geometry and not, the normal and displacement maps, I think that's going to be huge. Dude, so no more level of details, LOD type stuff in the future.
Dude, it's going to be so good. Would you mind hitting play in the game mode? And I'm just going to do one quick capture on here before you go.
Yeah, so do you want me, with the guy running around?
Yeah, just because that's fun. You can't do that in cinema, so that makes it particularly fun.
Let me see. Get rid of this camera.
Okay, give me a sec, and then...
You want me to run around, or?
Do it.
All right.
Dude, awesome.
Make it level one day.
All right. I'm going to jump us back up on screen if you want to give that a save just in case. Maybe somebody could be interested in it. Boop.
I will save this project.
All right, it's just our faces up on screen. Once again, the links for all of Jonathan's stuff is below. I even put a link in the chat already directly to the course he has on mograph.com. Obviously, everybody should go and check that out. Thank you so much for being a guest, man. This is awesome. I'm glad you were the first guest of the season. Definitely going to have you back again. This was super fun. We can even like brainstorm a little bit ahead of time and be like, yeah, let's make a crazy project. I mean, we could, you importing that, the game character that's already pre-built in there, like we could design pretty quickly an entire level in cinema and just immediately be running around in this crazy MoGraph world. Could be exactly that kind of thing. Could be really cool.
Because I even have a tutorial where you could take a character, rig it up in Mixamo, then bring it into Unreal, and then you have your own character instead of that default character. We can make our own character, bring it into Unreal, and sky's the limit.
Dude, it's so crazy. Dude, I'd love to see that.
There.
Yeah. So that is going to wrap us up today. There'll be a regular stream next week, of course. You can support on Patreon. You get access to the scene files and bonus streams I do on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Other than that, next week will be regular. And the week after that, the next guest is going to be Nick Campbell from Grayscale Gorilla. He's finally going to be joining on the stream. But once again, Thank you so much for joining me on the bonus stream. And I'll see everybody in a week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it.